Welcome to Outrage Science Bites, where we explore the science behind our emotions and behaviors in today's polarized world in bite-sized episodes. In this episode, we're looking at the psychology of tribalism, why we stick to our sides in the political arena. Tribalism, a term we hear often in discussions about social division, refers to the way we form groups based on shared identities, beliefs, or affiliations. It influences how we perceive others, react to differing opinions, and engage in political discourse. Let's start by understanding the emotional roots of this phenomenon. Our first expert, researcher Richard Reimann, discusses the primal nature of human emotions and morality.
This is really primal stuff, these sorts of sentiments, right? Like this is really part of our innate hardwired cognitive machinery. And it's got pretty good reasons for being there that way, right? So if you go back a long time ago, it was really important for us to be able to identify who was part of our group and sort of distinguish ourselves from our outgroup. And that was really important back then, but it kind of seems like it's become a little bit disingenuous. So it seems like a lot of people are mobilizing this kind of rhetoric because they know that it's going to create this kind of moral antagonism, as opposed to actually being morally antagonistic, right? It's more sort of like self-interest, whether it's to win votes or whether it's to, sell copy or get links and clicks and things like this. So on the one hand, emotions are really important signals because they sort of regulate and coordinate behavior, right? They sort of encourage us to be pro-social. They also encourage us to punish each other when we've deviated from norms that we've commonly agreed to. And then morality really captures those norms that we're sort of supposed to abide by that can help us get along. And the moral emotions are those emotions which motivate us to act morally and then to punish people who act immorally. And it's again, two sides of the same coin there, right? So something like outrage is both a signal that punishes someone who's defected from our norms. And it's also a signal to people who have the same beliefs as I do, that I'm a trustworthy moral person, that you can count on me, right? So it's again, like it really sort of binds the in-group and sets them off against the out-group. And that's sort of a classic tension or dynamic that we see.
Outrage serves as a mechanism for enforcing group norms and punishing those who deviate from them. This dynamic not only strengthens in-group bonds, but also creates divisions between groups. Our emotions serve as signals, encouraging us to engage in helpful and cooperative actions within our own social groups, while simultaneously reinforcing boundaries that make our group special and distinct from other groups. Now let's hear from neuroscientist Alex Korb, who sheds light on how our evolutionary past shapes our modern behaviors.
When stuff that we do in modern society doesn't make sense, it's always helpful to think about, well, how the brain evolved in this way, because it usually makes a lot more sense. And so all of this makes a lot more sense if you think about the brain 50,000 years ago, when we lived in small tribes of 50 or 100 or 150 people. And if you were excluded from the tribe, well, that was basically a death sentence, because you're left on your own and you're gonna die. That's why it activates the same systems as being attacked by a lion. And well, how do you know who to trust? Well, it's the people that you're around all the time, who you interact with all the time, who you know. And who should you not trust? Everybody else, because they're potentially a threat. And this like tribalistic urge that we have, well, that was a real feature of the brain that helped us survive and evolve. And so that's one of the reasons we have it. It's just that in an advanced, large multicultural society, well, that sometimes gets in the way. And so we can't just rely on, people who we know directly and who interact with. So we use all these shorthand markers of like, well, what, are they, or do they say they're Republican or a Democrat, or like, do I know them? Do I watch them on TV a lot? Or, did my friend recommend them? And how much of myself do I see in them? How much do they look like me? And we use all these sort of shorthand metrics for sort of trigger those same tribalistic tendencies. And we may not even be consciously aware of that, because these emotional circuits and these habit circuits often act really quickly before we're even consciously aware of them.
Our brains are wired to prioritize loyalty to our tribes, viewing outsiders as potential threats. This instinctive response, once vital for survival, now complicates our interactions in a diverse world. We rely on shorthand markers like political affiliation or media exposure to categorize others, often unconsciously triggering our tribalistic tendencies. Together, these insights illustrate a powerful narrative about the psychology of tribalism. Our emotions, originally designed to foster social cohesion, can be weaponized, deepening the divides in our political landscape. The fear of exclusion rooted in our evolutionary past further exacerbates this divide as we cling to our groups and demonize the other. In our increasingly polarized environment, understanding these psychological mechanisms can help us navigate the challenges of tribalism. It's not just about politics, it's about our fundamental need for belonging and acceptance in a complex world. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Outrage Science Bites. If you found this exploration of tribalism insightful, you may want to check out the long-form Outrage Overload podcast. Visit outrageoverload.net for past episodes, links, and contact information. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we continue this series on the psychology of polarization with a discussion about healthy conflict, how to disagree without outrage.